Hello friends, good morning everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel, and if I am audible, just let me know. हाँ जी, गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीबडी. हाँ जी, जल्दी से एक बार बता दीजिए whether I'm audible or not in the comment section. Please put it down. Yes, thank you so much. Now we're going to start the analysis for today, right? So before I start the today's analysis, I would like to tell you one thing, that today's more of the newspaper is trying to focus on the mains aspect, right? So a lot of questions, a lot of editorials that we're going to discuss today has a certain element related to mains, plus there are certain articles that are related to prelims as well, right? So today's article is a very important one. Today's newspapers are very important, and we have to discuss, let's say, most of the topics. Now this is a very interesting news. In a first laughing girl spotted in India. Now this is a migratory bird that is coming directly from the North America, and it has been spotted for the very first time. Now whenever such things happens related to any migratory species or any species that is there in the news for the very first time, it becomes relevant from our examination point of view. So let's try to discuss this particular topic in detail. Now when we talk about laughing gull, it is a migratory bird from North America that has been sighted in the Chitri estuary in the Kasaragod district in Kerala, right? So this becomes very, very important where it has been, let's say, sighted. Now when we talk about this laughing gull, very important, it has a certain characteristics of the, let's say, physical features, like it has a dark upper part, black legs, long dropping bill, and the mark smudge on the back of the hand, confining it to be a laughing gull. So these are certain characteristics. As you can see in this particular picture, you can see the beak, you can see the legs, right? And you can see the overall system, and you can see the overall photo. Now this becomes very important from our examination point of view, because this laughing gull has been sighted for the very first time in India's Kerala district. Now another thing that we have to understand is, whenever we talk about such migratory species, then one or two things become very important in context of migratory species. Let's try to recall what is that important thing. Now when we talk about migratory species, whether it can be, let's say, on terrestrial, or let's say the avian or the aquatic species, there is a specific convention that deals with the conservation of migratory species. And what is the name of the convention? It is the convention by the name of CMS convention, or it is also known as Bonn convention. Now this aspect becomes very important, and this convention is related to what? It is related to migratory species. Very, very important. So this is the aspect that we have to understand. Plus, when we talk about in detail about CMS convention, it has two appendix under it. Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. The migratory species that are threatened with most extinction, or are near extinction, or are most threatened, are given the maximum protection and are listed in Appendix 1. And when the species are not that much threatened with extinction, but if we take their conservation efforts, then it will help us a lot in the upcoming future in order to conserve that species. So as a result, here the level of protection, we can say, is lesser as compared to Appendix 1. So this is the point that we have to understand in context of Convention for Migratory Species, that is also known as the Bonn Convention. Another point that we have to understand is that its last Convention on Migratory Species Conference of Parties, it took place in Gandhinagar. Very important. Its last Conference of Parties took place in Gandhinagar. And this becomes very, very important from our examination point of view. Why? Because it happened in India, and it was a last COP2 Convention on Migratory Species, where certain interesting points were taken into mind when we talk about Convention for Migratory Species. And in this convention, a very famous great Indian bustard that has been in the news recently was the topic, or we can say was the mascot of the convention. And I think सबको पता है कि आज के टाइम पे if we talk about great Indian bustard, तो वो कहाँ पे मिलते हैं? it is found mostly in Rajasthan and Gujarat, where their numbers are almost up to the mark of 100, where their population has become critically endangered because of the solar transmission lines, and they get stuck to that solar transmission lines. As a result, their numbers are getting down, and as a result, Supreme Court has also intervened in this matter, and they have asked the government that they need to formulate a policy on an urgent basis where they need to protect this particular species, which is great Indian bustard, and it has to be done in a very, let's say, urgent manner, because their numbers are totally dwindling. एंड एक टाइम पे ये हमारा एक लकी मैस्कट था जब हम सीओपी की बात करते हैं, दैट हैपेंड इन February 2020. So the last conference of parties to the let's say Bonn Convention took place in Gandhinagar, where the lucky mascot was the great Indian bustard, जो आजकल न्यूज में बहुत ज्यादा आ रहा है. क्यों? क्योंकि इनके नंबर्स कम होते जा रहे हैं. Those who have been following the news would be aware of this particular situation that is related to great Indian bustard. I hope this point is clear to everybody. And this year in prelims we might see a question related to Bonn Convention, or there could be a question related to ग्रेट इंडियन बस्टर्ड, राइट. तो इसकी बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो हमें याद करनी है और बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट भी हैं. लाइक IUCN में इसका क्या स्टेटस है, साइटिस के अंदर क्या स्टेटस है, व्हाट इज द स्टेटस अंडर CMS, and in which schedule it comes under Wildlife Protection Act. So these are quite certain facts that we have to remember. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Now, moving to the next part. Now, ये सारी पॉलिटिकल न्यूज चल रही है, आपको पता ही है बिहार में क्या हुआ है, राइट. फिर से उन्होंने अपना पार्टी चेंज कर ली है नीतीश कुमार जी ने, राइट. ये बार बार होता ही रहता है, एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो वेरी एविडेंट वाज वेल बिफोर द इलेक्शन. नाउ, acid rain has its origin in fossil fuels. I think everybody knows acid rain क्या होती है, and acid rain is basically because of the release of certain oxides that are present in the atmosphere, and those oxides are primarily the nitrogen oxide and sulfur oxides. And this type of question has generally been asked in the examination. If you look at the previous year UPSC 2022 prelims, ये direct question था कि acid rain किस compounds की वजह से होती है. So both SO2 and NO2, or the sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides, जब ये atmosphere में होते हैं, and when they are oxidized, it can lead to dry deposition, or also it can lead to wet deposition as well. And if get infiltrated into our ecosystem, then it put a very greater harm to our ecosystem as well, जब हम बात करते हैं नाइट्रोजन ऑक्साइड की और सल्फर ऑक्साइड की. अब क्वेश्चन उठता है, व्हाट आर द सोर्सेज ऑफ नाइट्रोजन ऑक्साइड एंड सल्फर ऑक्साइड. नाउ व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट इट्स सोर्सेज, देयर आर सर्टेन नेचुरल सोर्सेज एज वेल, like there are produced basically when volcanoes erupt or when lightning passes through the atmosphere. So these are the two natural sources that you need to remember, because in the examination you can get a question, they cannot be asking the same question, भाई acid rain किस वजह से होती है, वो ऐसा पूछ सकते हैं कि acid rain के sources क्या है. So it can be natural and it can be from the, let's say, cities as well, because cities, we know there is a lot of vehicles that are moving, and when the fuel is burn or combustion होती है fuel की, then it leads to the release of these sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides. और जब ये air में जाते हैं, they react with water and oxygen molecules to produce sulfuric acid and nitric acid, which are both corrosive. So this is the point that we have to understand in context of sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide. Now, one of the point another we have to understand is when we talk about the pH level, right? pH level of these acid rain, it is around 4.2 to 4.4. So this is also a very important fact. ये आपको याद रखना है कि इनका pH कितना होता है. It is around 4.2 to 4.4. And what are the sources? It can be natural and it can be artificial as well. जो man made है, जो अगर हम artificial की बात कर रहे हैं, what are the man made sources? It is basically coming from the vehicular combustion. राइट. सो ये दो पॉइंट है जो आप मिस नहीं कर सकते और बहुत ज्यादा ही इंपॉर्टेंट है. दीज आर द टू मेन सोर्सेज जहां से हमें ये देखने को मिल रहे हैं. सो दैट इज व्हाई देयर हैज बीन अर्ज फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट एज वेल कि गवर्नमेंट ज्यादा क्लीनर फ्यूल की तरफ जा रही है, बिकॉज ये नाइट्रोजन ऑक्साइड्स है जो सबसे ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट कर रहे हैं. सो इफ वी हैव टू टैकल द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ नाइट्रोजन ऑक्साइड्स, वी नीड टू हैव बेटर एमिशन स्टैंडर्ड्स दैट आर कमिंग फ्रॉम द व्हीकल्स. सो इन दिस कंटेक्स्ट, द recent technology that has been enforced by the government of India in order to make sure that the vehicles are compliant with, that is BS6 emission technology. Very important. I think everybody is aware कि what is this BS6 emission technology. It is a certain upgrade over BS4. Now these are very important norms that we have to understand. I will just try to make you a little bit idea so that you have a clear picture what is the whole situation. Now when we talk about this emission standards, we have adopted Bharat stage emission norms from Euro norms, right? Now we had a time lag of almost 2 years from Euro norms, but recently we thought that instead of going towards from BS4 to BS5 and then to BS6, what we did, we had a direct shift from where we directly shifted from BS4 to BS6. Now when we talk about BS6, it has a specific technology that is quite important, and the name of the technology is selective catalytic reduction technology, which is also known as SCR technology. And what happens in this technology? The oxides of the nitrogen in the engine itself is reduced with the use of certain catalysts by the name of palladium and rhodium and converted into elemental nitrogen. Now this is the advantage that we have over BS6 engines, that there is a technology by the name of SCR technology. ये क्वेश्चन पेपर में पूछा जा सकता है. It is very important. Now with the help of this technology you are reducing NOx into nitrogen. Now understand what was the main cause of the acid rain. जो acid rain का main cause था, it was basically the presence of sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides in the atmosphere. And what you have done, you have just removed those oxides from the atmosphere by shifting towards more cleaner fuel. Now there is another trend that is going on कि यार हम इन पेट्रोल डीजल की गाड़ियों को यूज ही मत करें. We shall instead be focusing on electric vehicles as well. So this is also the norms that we have to understand. Plus, there is also one another aspect that is related to this air pollution, what we have studied in the form of acid rain as well. There becomes another important thing that we have to understand, that when this nitrogen oxide react with volatile organic compounds in the presence of sunlight, it creates photochemical smog. That is also a type of air pollutant. So this is also a worrisome factor that is there in context of these nitrogen oxides. So as a result, there is a urgent need कि हमें इन nitrogen oxides को reduce करना है और इनकी concentration को कम करना है. That is why we have come up with more cleaner standards, that is BS6 emission norms. Not only does it help in reducing nitrogen oxide, but also it has a dual advantage as well. What is that dual advantage? It also reduces the concentration of particulate matter in the atmosphere. Very important. क्या reduce कर रहा है? It is reducing the concentration of particulate matter in the atmosphere, which is very important to achieve the goal of National Clean Air Program, whose purpose is to reduce the concentration of PM matter by 40% by 2026. Right? अगर सबको पता होगा, ये हमारा renew target है कि हमें 40% से कम करना है particulate matter को 2026 तक. And when we talk about PM 2.5, it is one of the dangerous air pollutant that has been labeled by Central Pollution Control Board. I hope this prospect is clear to you guys. And whenever you have to study a topic, you have to make such layers into the topic. Then only you would be able to understand in a very broad manner, right? You can add electric vehicles, you can add over here biofuels, you can add over here ethanol blending program, you can add over here biodiesel, right? So all these things have to be merged together. And in this context, when you will read about biofuels, then there will come the national biofuel policy as well, right? So these are the certain things that you have to understand. अगर हमें एग्जामिनेशन में अच्छे मार्क्स लाने हैं तो ऐसी अंडरस्टैंडिंग हमें जरूरत है ताकि हम एक टॉपिक की डिटेल्स तक उसको पढ़ सके. ओके, नाउ कमिंग टू द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक, it is about two editorials that have been discussed over here that are very important. First is written by M.K. Narayanan sir. He's a former director of IB, a former NSA and a former governor of West Bengal, right? His editorials are always about this international relations, and they are very important because it brings a different viewpoint. Second article is related to a closer look at Myanmar's discontent. I think everybody is aware of the situation that is happening around the Myanmar region. So this Myanmar region also becomes a very important scenario. Now let's try to understand these two editorials with the help of maps so that you have an holistic understanding. Now, coming to the map, just give me 1 minute. Okay, now this is a Google map. I think everybody can see over here, right? This is, let's say, ये हमारा रशिया है, ये हमारा यूक्रेन है. दिस इज द रीजन ऑफ वी हैव ऑफ Israel and Gaza, where the conflict has taken place. This is Red Sea, this is Gulf of Aden, this is Arabian Sea, this is the matter of Maldives that we have a problem over here, and this is Russia and Ukraine. Now 2024 May, if we see the new challenges that are there in front of the world, now the first challenge is related to this Russia Ukraine war. पहला चैलेंज क्या है? रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर. I think everybody is aware क्या रशिया यूक्रेन में चल रहा है. War has been going almost there for 2 years, but there hasn't been any solution that has come up. There hasn't been any deadlock that could be resolved because there is no external agent that is coming to resolve the issue between Russia and Ukraine. That is the bigger problem that we have right now. There is not the support of Western bloc that is basically making sure that there needs to be a mediation between the Russia and Ukraine. That is where this Russia-Ukraine war has been going on, and it is not stopping soon. As a result, there needs to be a certain player that is very important that brings a mediation in this Russia-Ukraine, considering the fact that it will have a greater impact on the overall world affairs. Consider इस situation को देखो कि जब रशिया ने बैकआउट किया ब्लैक ग्रीन इनिशिएटिव से, उसमें दुनिया भर में कितनी ज्यादा इन्फ्लेशन देखने को मिली, राइट? सो देयर वाज अ इंक्रीज इन इन्फ्लेशन एज वेल. व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द इंक्रीज इन इन्फ्लेशन इन इंडिया रिसेंटली, वी हैड सीन इन द केसेस ऑफ प्राइसेस गोइंग अप, राइट? इट वाज नॉट ओनली अबाउट द डोमेस्टिक फैक्टर्स. भाई टोमेटोज को वहां पे कीड़े लग गए, राइट? इसकी वजह से नहीं था, बट इट वाज ऑल अबाउट द एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स एज वेल, दैट इज दिस रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर एज वेल. बट देयर इज नो पर्टिकुलर एक्सटर्नल एजेंट दैट इज कमिंग जो इनके बीच में इशू को रिजॉल्व कर पाए. नाउ द सेकंड इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट इज हैपनिंग इज अराउंड इजराइल एंड गाजा. आई थिंक सबको पता है गाजा में हमास जो है उन्होंने अटैक किया इजराइल के ऊपर ऑन 7th of October, एंड इजराइल रिटेलिएटेड इन गाजा, लीडिंग टू द सिविलियन क्राइसिस, मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट, जिसका मैटर अभी इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस में, और उन्होंने बोला है इजराइल को कि यू शैल स्टॉप दिस जिनोसाइड बिकॉज द वे द सिविलियंस आर बीइंग किल्ड, इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ जिनोसाइड, द मैटर दैट वाज टेकन बाय द साउथ अफ्रीका. नाउ व्हाट वी हैव सीन ओवर द टाइम पीरियड इन 2023 वाज द इनिशियली द वॉर वाज कंसंट्रेटेड ओनली इन दिस इजराइल गाजा रीजन, but now the war has come into this Red Sea where there has been a lot of attack on the commercial vessels. As a result, it has taken a hit on the supply chain, it has taken a hit on the trade supply as well, right? बहुत ज्यादा नुकसान हो रहा है जो vessels है जो यहां पे जा रहे हैं, because here there has been an attack from the Houthi rebels as well, right? And that is backed by Yemen, and if we see the situation of Yemen, somehow Yemen is backed by China. So as we can say, this whole war that is taking place in this region is somehow we can say is backed by China, which is backed by Yemen, right? So ये एक important scenario चल रहा है. Now the third thing that has come recently, आज की news है, this is Israel. Here we have a small country on the West Bank that is by the name of Jordan. There has been an air strike that has killed 3 American troops. Now the war is not only concentrated and it is between Israel and Palestinians, it has now gone beyond that, and it has engulfed this West Asian region as well, that has become again into turmoils, and it has now been subjected to, let's say, further destruction. So ये एक important scenario चल रहा है अगर हम world affairs की बात करते हैं. One is the situation between Russia and Ukraine, second is the situation that is happening between Israel and Gaza. Now very important, the third thing we have to understand is that हमारे देश में इलेक्शंस होने वाले हैं, right? And that is going to be dictating a lot of terms how India deal with situations that is related to this Israel Gaza and that is related to Russia and Ukraine. So this was the things that have been discussed by M.K. Narayanan sir in their editorial related to the world affairs and related to the internal rhetoric that would be based on the election results that's going to come in 2024. Not only the election results of India are very important, but the election results of USA are very important. That is going to do a presidential election in 2024 as well, where there is a strong chance that it could again make sure कि यहाँ पे डोनाल्ड ट्रंप भी वापस आ सकते हैं. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Now, the second article is related to the situation that we have in Myanmar, right? मैं एक बार म्यांमार का मैप enlarge कर देता हूं so that you guys are able to see. Now, this is the country Myanmar we have. These are all the part of ASEAN grouping. Here we have our beautiful India or Bharat, and here Myanmar also borders with China as well. Now, what has happened in Myanmar? 3 years ago, there was a military coup that took place in Myanmar, right? I think everybody is aware of it. Right now, when we talk about the situation of Myanmar, it is being ruled by the military. Now, if we see the situation before the military, there used to be a democratic government, and this democratic government had to face a lot of ethnical conflict as well, right? तो यहां पे अगर हम बात करें, बहुत सारे एथनिसिटीज के लोग हैं, जिसकी वजह से बहुत सारी यहां पे आर्म्ड कंफ्लिक्ट देखने को मिले हैं इन द स्टेट ऑफ म्यांमार. नाउ ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड. Myanmar is bordering these ASEAN grouping and is a part of ASEAN, plus it is bordering India, plus it is bordering China. It had a democratic rule, but now that democratic rule was overtaken by the military coup. As a result, that military coup, there has been a rule of the military over here in Myanmar. And somehow, one of the most important point that we have to understand is, somehow it is being stated कि चाइना की अगर हम बात करते हैं, दे आर बैकिंग द मिलिट्री इन म्यांमार. कैसे? अगर कोई भी यूनाइटेड नेशन में रेजोल्यूशन लिया जाता है अगेंस्ट दिस मिलिट्री रूल, चाइना ब्लॉक्स दैट रेजोल्यूशन. सो समहाउ वी कैन गेट एन आइडिया दैट चाइना हैज बीन फेवरिंग म्यांमार इन दिस पर्टिकुलर मिलिट्री रूल. Second important thing, the members of parliament that were earlier there before the military coup, now they have formed their own armed force resistant organizations that is resisting against this what? Against this military rule. So there are ethnic organizations that has been carrying on their let's say fight forever. Second important thing is that there has been an armed force groups that have been made by the People's Democratic Party of the Myanmar. So as a result, what we are witnessing over here, that there is a lot of chaos in the state of Myanmar. As a result, बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो यहां पे रिफ्यूजीज की तरह सेटल हो रहे हैं इंडिया के अंदर, राइट? सो देयर हैज बीन अ लॉट ऑफ इन्फ्लक्स ऑफ रिफ्यूजीज कमिंग फ्रॉम म्यांमार टू इंडिया, प्लस देयर हैज बीन रीसेंट के जो म्यांमार गवर्नमेंट की मिलिट्री के सोल्जर्स हैं वो भी इंडिया में आ चुके हैं, right? They have taken a refuge as well and they have left the Myanmar army. Now the third important thing we have to understand is that when we see this situation, Laos, Cambodia, this is what we have, the hub of opium, and we see a lot of trafficking that goes on from Myanmar side into the Indian side, and that is backed by China and Pakistan. क्योंकि यहां पे हमारा फ्री मूवमेंट रिजीम है, जिसकी वजह से यहां पे हम देखते हैं बॉर्डर के अक्रॉस बहुत ज्यादा मूवमेंट होती है, एंड इट इज बीइंग अलाउड एज वेल. एंड रिसेंटली देयर वाज अ प्रपोजल दैट दिस फ्री मूवमेंट रिजीम वुड बी कैंसल्ड कंसिडरिंग द इंपैक्ट दैट इट इज पुटिंग ऑन इंडियन रिसोर्सेज, प्लस इट इज पुटिंग एन इंपैक्ट ऑन द internal security of the country as well, because of this influx of refugees, influx of these weapons, influx of these drugs that is happening across the Myanmar. Now when we see ASEAN ने यहां पे जो मिलिट्री रूल है उनके लिए एक 5-point consensus भी बनाया है कि किस तरीके से how we can reach democratic government as well. Now when we see the situation of USA, उन्होंने म्यांमार के ऊपर they have put a lot of sanctions because of the military rule, but somehow we need to understand one thing, that Myanmar is being in the state of chaos, whether it is related to military rule, whether it is related to China helping this military rule, plus China helping this ethnic conflict as well. Ethnic conflict भी खुद से नहीं हो रहे हैं, because China is supplying them with the financial allocation and the resources, and it is backing them. That is why Myanmar we see in this whole state of chaos. And there was a recent editorial as well where it was discussed how the impact has been by this military rule on the various civil liberties of the people, whether it is related to civil liberty index, whether it is related to freedom of press, all those things are being suppressed, and there are no number of people that are journalists that are being imprisoned. उनका नंबर बढ़ता जा रहा है, जिसकी वजह से अगर हम म्यांमार की बात करते हैं, it is in a full state of chaos, and India has to form a certain strategy if India is looking forward to make sure कि म्यांमार की वजह से इंडिया की इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी हैम्पर ना हो. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Just give me a confirmation, quick confirmation. हाँ जी guys, right? Okay. Now moving to the next part. This is related to Aadhaar based pay, a bad idea for MG Narega. I think everybody knows that MG Narega is a scheme that is a demand driven scheme where there is a guarantee 100 days of wage employment for the rural households, right? I can write it down over here that there is a 100 days of wage employment for rural household workers. Now, there has been certain problems that we have seen over the years related to this implementation of MG Narega. Now, I think everybody is aware कि होता क्या है, लोगों के एक बैंक अकाउंट होते हैं, एक IFSC कोड होता है जहां से उनके पेमेंट्स कर दी जाती हैं. But one thing we have to understand is कि there is one job card, but there are different bank accounts that are linked with it. So what government is trying to do कि government कह रही है कि हम आधार बेस्ड इनेबल पेमेंट सिस्टम लेके आना चाहते हैं जहां से जितने भी लूप होल्स हैं, क्योंकि हो सकता है कई बार बेनिफिशियरी के अकाउंट में पैसा नहीं जा रहा. सो एज अ रिजल्ट व्हाट दे ट्राइंग टू डू इज टू मेक श्योर दैट देयर इज वन जॉब कार्ड दैट इज कनेक्टेड विद आधार कार्ड, दैट आधार कार्ड इज कनेक्टेड विद अ बैंक अकाउंट, and the payment would be directly made sure will be linked with this Aadhaar card number. So this Aadhaar card number will be acting as a financial address. But one thing they are forgetting over here is that a lot of people would have to fix the technical glitches that might be there, because there could be differences in the job cards and in the Aadhaar card name as well, right? उन सबको रिजॉल्व करना पड़ेगा before we can fully go towards this Aadhaar based enable payment system. Now the government is saying कि ये वो करेंगे, but if we see on the ground reality that is being discussed over here, it is not going to be solving the problem that had been there, that whether the beneficiaries are actually getting the money or the wages under the MG Narega. And recently government had also introduced a attendance system where the attendance of the MG Narega workers have to be geotagged, and they would have to be present 2 times, in the morning shift and in the afternoon shift, if they are seriously looking forward कि अगर उनको वेजेस मिलेंगी. अर्लियर ऐसा नहीं था, बट अब उन्होंने जियो टैगिंग सिस्टम ला दिया है. अगर मेरे ख्याल से आई कैन रिकॉल दैट नेम ऑफ द सॉफ्टवेयर इज नेशनल मोबाइल मॉनिटरिंग सॉफ्टवेयर, वेयर द attendance of the MG Narega workers will be geo-tagged. So there are two important things. The first is this particular software that has been introduced. It has also its certain negative externalities. And second one is Aadhaar based payment system. That is also a serious concern when we talk about this. Basically, क्योंकि इसमें बहुत सारा technical glitches है जिसको solve करना पड़ेगा before we can fully move towards this system. Okay. Now moving to the next part. Analyzing China's ties with Africa. I think ये सबको पता है how China has been helping Africa earlier. If we see the time period of 1960s and 70s, it helped China, Africa के वहां पे जो liberation movements चल रही थी उनको help किया. And now this African bloc is very important from China. Why? Because of the way it supplies the minerals like cobalt, platinum. So as a result, this is a very strategic place for China, and China has invested a lot in these countries as well. As you can see, Foreign Minister of China visit to Africa had multiple objectives. The major agenda was to implement the outcomes of China-Africa Leaders Dialogue held in August 2023 in Johannesburg, South Africa. Africa supplies 90% of the world's cobalt and platinum and 75% of coltan essential for electronics. I think this is a, let's say, an understanding that shall be there to everybody. Right now is the time of emerging and critical technologies. Right now is the time of new semiconductors, and there we see the use of all these minerals, and China has a strategic reserve because Africa is very much closer to China. So China has the largest refineries in Africa for rare earth and minerals that are vital to its emerging tech industry. Africa receives investments, trade and development aid from China in return for natural resources. So how China is helping them? It is providing them this investment, and in return they are getting these natural resources. So that is a big advantage that China has right now when we talk about in context of Africa. Okay guys, now moving to the next part. I think we are almost over with the today's analysis. अभी एक दो न्यूज होंगी. अब ये देख लेना, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger has quit the West African bloc. Now the military regimes in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, इनकी एक बार लोकेशन देख लेना, they have withdrawn from the Western African bloc ECOWAS, right? तो ये चीज चेक कर लेना. Okay. ठीक है, वही रेड सी में प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही हैं, वो हमने डिस्कस कर ही दिया. Okay. So yesterday was a very, what we can say, a defining moment in the international sports history. After 27 years, West Indies won a test in Australia. The story of Shamar Joseph is an inspiring one. Last year he was a security guard. Now he has been the match changer in Australia. That too at Gabba. England beaten India at home, right? After getting a lead or conceding a lead of 190 runs. Yannick Sinner won the Australian Open after he was 2 sets down. So these are certain important news that we have to understand as well. Yannick Sinner has become the men's Australian Open champion, and also our Rohan Bopanna has become the champion in the mixed doubles seats. So this is it from my side for today. I hope you have understood the analysis. और ये चीज़ें बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है, इनको पढ़ लीजिए कीजिए, क्योंकि ये स्पोर्ट्स न्यूज़ भी बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट होती है जब हम एग्जामिनेशन की बातचीत करते हैं. अगर आपका कोई क्वेरी है तो आप मेरे से पूछ सकते हैं. हाँ जी. सर आई सिक्योर 39 और 14 जीएस सेक्शन. आप कौन से पेपर की बात कर रहे हो बेटा? फकीरेश, which examination you are talking about? Okay, right. So this is it from my side, right? And we will see each other tomorrow, same time, 9 a.m. Till then, take care. Bye bye. हाँ जी, कोई डाउट हो तो पूछ सकते हो. Before I end the session, I'm giving you a certain time. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. IB ACI exam. सी फकीरेश, इसमें तो आई कैन स्टिल से कि यार बस अपना बाकी चीज़ों के ऊपर फोकस करो. ठीक है, कोई इशू नहीं है. ट्राई टू फोकस मोर हार्ड ऑन दैट इशू. जी सेट है, बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है यार. हमारे यूपीएससी के लिए भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, सिर्फ और किसी एग्जाम के लिए नहीं. बाकी बहुत सारे एग्जाम्स के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द सी सेट पार्ट एंड मोस्टली द मैथ्स पार्ट, राइट. सो ट्राई टू फोकस कि अभी प्रीलिम्स इज गेटिंग नियर बाय एंड यू हैव टू फोकस ऑन द मैथ्स पार्ट एज वेल. इट्स गोइंग टू बी टफ गाइज. सो बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दैट. थैंक यू सो मच.